I'm Sherry Jonas, and this is Launch, a podcast for parents navigating the difficult landscape of raising adult children who are struggling to launch confidently and independently into adulthood. Before we begin, I'm excited to share with you that my parenting course, Journey to Independence, is currently open for registration. If you're ready to help your adult child move forward in life, you'll find the link to learn more in the show notes. Today, my guest is Dr. Kate Lund. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, author, TEDx speaker, and a resilience expert with more than 2 decades of clinical practice. She's the author of the best-selling book Bounce, and her newest release, which we'll be talking about in today's episode, is Step Away, The Keys to Resilient Parenting. It's a roadmap that helps parents build resilience, manage stress, and strengthen their emotional capacity. If you're curious about what it takes to develop and model resilience for your adult children, Dr. Kate shares her expertise and will inspire you to practice becoming a more optimized parent. So let's get started. Kate, thank you for joining me here on Launch.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really appreciative.
I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. I find your topic to be such an important one for everyone, because each day brings us challenges. So we need to be prepared to handle them.
100%. It's right. None of us are going to avoid challenges ever.
Right. Having said that, your work on resilience speaks directly to parents of struggling adults. So today we're diving into what resilience means, why it's so important for parents to be optimized each day, and we're going to talk more about that, and what suggestions you have to help parents model and inspire their kids to become more resilient. But first, I'd love to know how you became so passionate about resilience. Is there a story behind this that you can share with the listener?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm definitely passionate about resilience, how we are able to create a resilient lifestyle, move through and beyond challenge, all of that goes back to my childhood, actually, when I was diagnosed with a medical condition called hydrocephalus.
Mm.
Basically, that means that the cerebral spinal fluid isn't circulating as it should, causing pressure to build up on the brain. And so the good news is hydrocephalus can be managed with something called a shunt, which
Mhm.
is a surgically implanted sort of drain or pump that circulates the fluid for us when it can't circulate on its own.
Right.
But the bad news is that meant lots of time in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, getting shunt revisions, making sure things were okay, all of that. So coming back to school looking different, feeling different. And so those early experiences were definitely the catalyst for, the things I became interested in, the areas that I focused on in school, and ultimately my decision to go back and become a clinical psychologist, get a doctorate. After working for a few years after college out in Washington D.C., I wasn't ready to go right back to grad school, but ultimately I knew that I would get there. And yeah, it's definitely those early experiences that served as the catalyst for my passion and my strong interest in this area.
Okay. Now, you have a new book out called Step Away, The Keys to Resilient Parenting. Can you,
100%.
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is basically a roadmap for how we as parents can optimize our own sense of well-being, build that resilient lifestyle that I referenced a moment ago, and show up fully for our kids, for those in our lives, show up the way that we intend to without being bogged down by all of the inevitable stressors that we're going to face each and every day.
Right, right. I never want to assume that anyone or everyone understands what the term resilience is. So, can you share your definition with the listener? And is this something that we are born with or can we learn?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so resilience in the way I define it, it's a resilient lifestyle. It's integrating strategies and tools into our day-to-day so that we're able to meet the challenges that we're going to face and move through them without having them shut us down.
Mm.
Resilience is not that sort of thing that comes upon us when we face a challenge and then we kind of put it away or put it in the background when that challenge has passed. It's more of an integrated way of living, is the way I'm thinking about it here and the way I write about it in the book. And whether we're born with it or not, some people are born a bit more resilient than others just based on the way they're wired, all of it. But, resilience can absolutely be fostered, can absolutely be learned and developed by integrating some of the tools and strategies that allow us to show up in a level space, that allow us to meet the challenges that we're going to face in a way that allows us to move through and beyond them.
Hmm. Okay, so what are the signs that someone is lacking resilience?
Well, the main signs are, if they face a challenge and automatically shut down. If they are finding themselves increasingly anxious, increasingly sort of on the edge of burnout,
Mm.
maybe they're going to have mood related symptoms. Maybe they're going to be more irritable than they might otherwise be. They might react to situations as opposed to respond.
Mm.
Those are all some signs that, and actually, one other, they lose sight of the possibility on the other side of the challenges, which is very, very important to maintain and to hold on to within the scope of this resilient mindset, this resilient lens. And also, when we're not as resilient as we might be, we tend to have a really hard time seeing other angles at which, from which we can come at certain challenges, or we have trouble getting back up when we've been knocked down by a challenge, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Many parents who have adult children struggling tend to jump in and rescue when things get too hard, which I think could be one of the hardest habits for parents to break. So, can you explain to our listener who tends to do this what happens psychologically to a young adult when their parents are consistently buffering them from discomfort, failure, even responsibility?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a really important question, right? Because when we do that, we are really taking away the ability of that adult child to develop a sense of agency, a sense of, hmm, that was hard, but I can do this.
Mm.
And we're by taking away that sense of agency, we're really kind of shutting them down in a sense, even though we have the best of intentions. We want to help. We want to help that child sort of move out of the situation that they might be struggling in. But it's a double-edged situation because we don't want to shut them down. We don't want to take away that agency. We want to find ways to foster that agency.
Right, right. And parents often say to me that their adult child has no confidence. So, is it fair to say that once they begin to develop resilience, it will have a positive impact on their self confidence?
100%, because they're going to internalize the fact that, well, first of all, they're going to internalize what's possible for them. And they're going to internalize that, wow, I am successful in certain ways. And we're going to help them to build on that by encouraging them to see the small successes along the way.
Hmm.
Because these types of changes don't come quickly. They don't come automatically. It takes practice and time to integrate. And one of the really important pieces there is to be able to see, to spot the small steps forward that we're taking
Hmm.
and not thinking that we have to go from point A to point Z all at once, because that's not realistically going to happen.
Hmm. I want to ask you about some meaningful ways that parents can help their adult child to develop resiliency. But I believe we both feel very strongly that parents need to work on themselves, which is why I mentioned optimized earlier. So, for us as parents to be optimized, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first and foremost, we really need to modulate our stress response so that we're
Mm,
showing up each day as level as possible. Because if we're showing up in an escalated space and then a challenge hits, and boom, we're going to escalate even more, likely to the point of shutdown.
mhm,
We want to be modulating that stress response as best as possible. Lots of ways to do it, but my favorite technique to teach folks is this thing called the relaxation response, which was developed by a physician in Boston in the 1970s
mhm,
before kind of mindfulness and breathing and all this stuff was a thing, but really well researched technique, very, very applicable across domains. Very simple as well. All you do is come up with a word or a phrase that you find soothing in some way
mhm,
and breathe. And as you're breathing, your central nervous system is modulating. And with consistent practice, you start to internalize what it feels like to be in that stress modulated space. So
mhm,
that's the first thing that we all need to do to start to optimize our own sense of well being.
mhm,
And from there, it's really understanding, it's self awareness. What are the things that we need to be at our best? Keeping in mind, we're not going to be at our best every single day, every single moment, but we're going to do the best that we can.
mhm. Interestingly, the Surgeon General came out with a report saying that parental stress is at an all-time high. So, which is a topic I'll be talking about in another episode because it really is like a pretty intensive topic. But needless to say, this relaxation response technique should become a part of our daily lives. And I guess at the same time, it also is it's very helpful for once you start practicing it to be able to teach it because it doesn't seem very difficult to teach.
Super easy, right? And that's
Mhm.
what's so great about it. So yes, practicing it. And by the way, the Surgeon General's report came out about a year ago. One of the reasons I actually launched into writing this book because parental stress is at such an all-time high,
Yeah.
and so many parents are on that brink of burnout. Um, Making it so important to have this type of a strategy, relaxation response, something like it built into your day to day to modulate your stress response. And it's really great because easy, you can take it with you kind of in your back pocket
Mm.
so that if you're about to enter a stressful meeting or you have a difficult conversation with your child or somebody else, you can kind of think of that word, that phrase, take an actual step back, practice for a few moments, and come back such that you can respond to whatever the situation is, as opposed to perhaps react or shut down.
Hmm. Hmm. We spoke a few weeks ago, and there was something that you said to me that just it resonated. So I want to share it with the listener because I found it very powerful. Being resilient is not just about having moments when we are able to bounce back. A resilient lifestyle can become our baseline. When resiliency is built into our daily life, we'll be able to deal with the challenges as they come up. And we should always be looking out for the possibilities on the other side of the challenges, and that will help us to be better poised to connect with our kids. I love that.
Yes, 100%. That's spot on. And I
Yeah,
guess I guess it's true. I must have said that to you when we talked the
you
last time.
did.
But yeah, I mean, it's spot on. It's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this modeling resilience, are there other techniques that parents can do to because I'm a big fan of modeling. I think because parents are hard teach. It's not easy to teach. We're
Right.
not born always to be teachers, but our behavior is we can model that. So any other suggestions you would have? I know in your book there's a lot of actionable steps and tools that you use, but for the parent listening that wants to be able to have that, you know, demonstrate how to help their and we call it co-regulation as well, right? But to demonstrate how to have more resilience and develop that. Is there any other strategies that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, absolutely. In terms of modeling and helping our kids to build their own foundation and resilience, One of the most important things we can do, in addition to modulating our stress response, is connecting with our children on
Hmm.
that authentic human level, sort of being there for them, with them, letting them know, we want to hear their experiences, within the context of challenge and otherwise,
Hmm.
without jumping in there to fix or tell them how we handled a situation or any of that, but just to be there and hear them. And that might take a while to develop, right? The kind of level of connection, level of comfort for that adult child to share with
Hmm.
us.
Yeah.
Perhaps that will take time. But so to create moments of connection around things that you like to do together, or a meal, or, for younger kids, I would say a ride in the car, but that's probably not exactly what's happening with adult kids, right? But, just that connection piece, not being afraid as parents to share the points where we've struggled, not in a, well, that was hard for me too, and here's how I handled it. Not that way, but just, that we have struggled, that we're not, you know, here without having struggled, but we've circumvented, we've navigated. And if the adult child is interested in knowing how that happened, sure, sharing it in a appropriate way. But it's those moments of authentic human connection that are so important.
It's funny. You just said riding in the car, and you don't think. And I got to tell you, I've had some of the best conversations with my young adults in the car.
Mhm.
There's the same, it's almost like the same thing as walking with them. We're not staring at each other, having this face-to-face conversation. We're side by side in the car or on this walking, and I can ask them questions that I may or may not be as comfortable asking, or they would be responding if they were sitting right in front of me. But those car rides, and we've driven a lot, they've gotten more comfortable sharing with me. So I want to encourage parents to jump into the car and run errands and, go grab something, a coffee, just through a drive-through, whatever, just to kind of get out of the house and have that connection with them. And I also love that you're talking about connection so much, because in my course, that's like the first thing I teach is to reconnect. And we do that through communication and listening and, just, it's almost like it doesn't even always have to even be verbal. It's just in the silence of it all. So, but you're bringing up something, and I know I think it's in Bounce, which is your second book. And I'm sorry if I'm not saying the full name. The word Bounce just comes to me. So can you tell us, what is the name of your second book?
Sure. So Bounce is actually my first book.
Oh,
Bounce, Help Your Child Build Resilience and Thrive in School, Sports, and Life.
okay.
That's the first book. And that talks about 7 pillars of the resilient child. But the cool thing is those pillars apply to all of us across the lifespan.
Yeah.
So first pillar is managing emotion, tolerating frustration, which is the modulation of the stress response.
Okay.
And then it's navigating friendship and social pressure, developing focus and attention, courage, confidence, optimism, and motivation are the pillars that we go through in that book. And it is true, all those pillars apply to all of us across the lifespan. The book is just written with the elementary school child in mind because my kids were in elementary school when I wrote the book. But the new book, Step Away, The Keys to Resilient Parenting, uh, really is that roadmap for how we as parents can optimize and then
Mm.
model for our kids. And again, applies across the lifespan. Doesn't matter, how old our child is. We just kind of adapt and build from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. And I love the fact that you want parents to focus on themselves. Because a lot of times parents are like, how can I fix them? How can I help them? What, motivate them? And I'm saying, wait a second,
Mhm.
let's work on you a little bit.
Yes.
Because, right? Because you're actually what they're watching and listening to and picking up on. So I love that you focus on us as parents being more optimized. That's such
Yeah,
a
100%, because we want to be able to show up in a way that allows us to have perspective, to
Mhm.
respond in ways that we want to, as opposed to react to the stress or the stressors that are happening. So absolutely. And, easier said than done. I mean, they're not all, we're not going to be optimized across situations all the time because it's going
Right.
to kind of ebb and flow. But the more we can build in, dial in this resilient lifestyle and the principles related to it, the stronger we're going to be showing up and the more we're going to be able to model for our kids, particularly our adult children who are, developmentally in that space to take things in. And so yeah, it's important.
And you have twin boys at home?
I do. Yes, they are 18. So they're on the cusp of young adulthood, or I guess we could say they are in young adulthood because at 18, you're technically an adult.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
journey for sure.
Yeah, I take a little bit of an issue with the age factor being the I'm an adult, I'm 18. First of all, as a psychologist, you know that their brain isn't even developed until their mid 20s. So this I'm 18, you can't tell me what to do and I'm an adult. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right. I know it's not, it doesn't make a lot of sense across domains, right? And
Mm,
like all of a sudden that line where you can't communicate with their doctor anymore at all. It's like
terrible.
you don't even exist. And I've got issues with that, like big time issues, but whole nother story. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's been fun with our boys. They're 18 and they're very different. And so parenting them has been about how to help each one of them to optimize within their own unique contexts. And that's
Mhm.
taken different approaches, different strategies, different ways of engaging with each of them. But each of them, I'm happy to say, is definitely thriving within their own unique context. So
You
been
know, it's
fun.
funny. You mentioned something. I asked about whether it's something that we learn or something that we're born with. Which, I sort of know the answer to the question, but I'm always wanting my listener to learn more about that. But we know when we have more than one child that they come into the world with a certain temperament, and some of them are hardier, and some of them are sensitive, and so we have to cater to their temperament as they come into the world. Are both your boys? I don't know anything about them, but I'm just saying, did they come into the world different or same? And if so, how did you approach that when it came to helping them build resilience? Or you're probably in the process of it anyway.
Yeah, definitely in the process of it, because I think it's an ongoing process kind of forever as a parent, right?
Right.
Never stop being that parent. Um, but their differences didn't really start to emerge until they got into preschool,
Hmm.
really. And so one of them had some learning challenges early on, which required a different angle on supporting him and helping him to find his path in school and academically and all of that. And his brother had everything kind of dialed in academically early on. So he had other challenges that came up. Very, very socially, emotionally evolved, very sensitive
Hmm.
early on. And that, was difficult sometimes because, when you're an 8-year-old boy, you're happy with the football. Like, where's the football? And I'm happy.
Hmm.
But the sensitive, sort of socially, emotionally evolved one of our boys wanted to know why the kids were saying and acting the way they were and what that meant. And yeah, it's hard for an 8-year-old kid to be coming across that way. So anyway, it's all evened out for both of them, and they're
Hmm.
both thriving on their own paths right now. And I think it was a question of recognizing who they were, recognizing where the challenges were, um, getting supports put in place for, say, my son who had some academic challenges early on, to help him bolster his reading, figure out the phonetic awareness piece, all of that, and really encourage him in that he didn't have to have all A's. As long as he was doing his best, it was going to be okay. And he
Right.
did not, we were really careful not to compare him to his brother who had that much easier time academically.
Hmm.
For the one who struggled a little bit with some bullying early on, it's like helping him to see his strengths and what he was bringing to the table and how he could use some of those strengths to navigate around some of the challenges. And he found his passion in crew and rowing and
Hmm.
has become very successful in it. Captain of the team for 2 years, all the things. And it's been a really important piece of his self and identity. And I think that was extremely valuable for him. And just so encouraging each of the boys on their own paths and mm, helping them to understand you don't always have to finish first. You don't always have to be the best, but as long as you're bringing your best,
Mm.
doing your best, that's all we can ask. So that's sort of a really simple kind of model for how it looked here. Easier said than done, wasn't always
Right.
perfect. For
Right.
sure, wasn't always perfect. But in the big picture has worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because, one of the biggest issues that parents are having is that they're young adults, and I say young adults, anywhere in their 20s, 30s. They're young in their terms of maturation and the development, so I'll call them young, but they're adults. Um, they're in their rooms. They're not coming out. They're not socializing. They're not finding hobbies. They're just COVID got to them, and it's almost been their like excuse. And when you're not engaging in the world and you're not talking to people or learning a new skill which could bring frustration, you're never going to build your resilience because you're just so tucked away, safe in the comforts of your little cocooned world that I first thing I say to parents is you open that door and get them out because they're never going to be able to handle life's challenges if they're never going to experience them. So it really is so much work and it is so hard, you
Oh, it's
know?
so hard. I mean, yes, there's nothing easy about it, right? But yeah, it's that opening the door. It's encouraging them to take that first step forward when things seem hard because things are hard. It's not
Yeah.
easy out there these days. But helping them to see the benefits in trying something new or taking a risk with an activity that they might think, or no, I don't think I'm going to like that, but maybe they will.
Yeah. At
Trying
least
to put the phone down for a minute or more than a minute.
more than a minute.
Yeah,
So,
because
yeah.
that's hard.
So in terms of awareness, you talked about that earlier, and that I love that, bringing awareness to your body, yourself, and seeing where you are at different points, and then, working on that stress response technique.
Mhm.
Um, what else other forms of awareness can we talk about that would be helpful for parents as well as for them to teach their young adults? I'll give you one that I love, which is, I love journaling. I think, and I've expressed that to my children and bought them blank journals, and just said, like, if in order to become more in touch with your thoughts and your feelings, get them out of your head and put them down on paper, as if you're almost having this inner dialogue. They talk about people that talk to themselves,
Mhm.
guilty, but it is a great tool to speak to yourself, almost as if you are co-counseling, and dealing with some of those little fears and demons and insecurities. But what suggestions would you have in terms of getting in touch with yourself, your self-awareness?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And the first thing that I would have come to is the journaling. And I'll tell you, that's held a really powerful role here. One of the boys, the my son who's socially emotionally involved, very sensitive early on, started journaling in eighth grade,
Mm.
continues it to this day as a daily practice. And it I don't remember specifically suggesting to him that he start to journal. I know I suggested some of the like Headspace apps and modulating his stress response stuff, but I think he took that in the journaling direction, and it has become a very powerful tool for him in understanding himself, understanding how to manage various situations that he encounters, on the crew team or at school or socially or what have you. And so that's really an example of how that technique, journaling, has kind of played out here, but I recommend it to people all the time because
Yeah.
it's such a powerful way to track our experiences, understand how we're reacting to certain things, shift gears on those responses or reactions if we feel like, maybe we could do that better. So, journaling is the first go to in terms of understanding ourselves and understanding how we're showing up in the world and how we'd like to show up. So, that's really, really important.
Yes, I was just going to say that you can journal, if you had some kind of escalated situation and you feel really bad about it. And this is not, let's say, coming from a parent, because, we're always kind of like in that state of reaction, response, and we want to be calmer as we talk to them, but we get triggered. We're human. We could have had a rough day and then we come in and the dishes are everywhere. And so we have this kind of knee-jerk reaction. We're not happy about it. We're not pleased with it. But when you journal about it, the question you ask yourself is, how could I have done that differently? What would have been a better approach? And then when you come to that level of like acknowledgement that I did not handle that well, I encourage parents to actually say to their young adults, listen, I'm sorry, I did not react properly. Because, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say 100% because it's admitting when we might have handled something differently or acknowledging that, that wasn't the best way to respond in that situation. I'm gonna, I would have done this had I
Yeah.
had a chance to process. So yeah, that's all. I just was gonna agree with that idea because it's so important.
Yeah. And it teaches our children that we make mistakes, not to become narcissistic and think that everything you do is the right way, but to know that we're all, you know, figuring it out every day, how to be better, for ourselves and for each other. So, yeah,
100%, 100%. And the other thing, sort of in terms of awareness and building awareness, that's really important is recognizing when things are going well, being able to pinpoint our wins as opposed
mm,
to, human nature takes us to that negative space. Like I would have, could have, should have, that didn't go well. It's really honing in on the hard stuff. Really important to manage through the hard stuff, but we also want to be focusing on the good stuff. So I encourage folks to keep what I call a daily wins journal or
love
do the daily
that.
wins exercise each day where they jot down 3 to 5 things during the course of the day that did go well. And that I find a very powerful exercise in shifting awareness and at least bringing our needle back to neutral, maybe even a little bit in the positive direction, which helps us then stay focused on the possibilities out there for us.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually a great suggestion as a nice compliment, because a lot of times people go, okay, I'm gonna get the journal and I'm gonna write, you know, my day or what I did wrong. But you're 100% right. It's so important to be proud of the things that you did well. I love that. That's so cool. We talk about the small wins all the time, and to acknowledge them. That's a great piece of advice. I love that. I know we're getting close to wrapping up and you've shared so much and I don't want to give too much away because I think your book is great, a great resource. But I do like to leave on a positive note, something that parents, you know, can feel good about or be hopeful about, because as we discussed, there's so much stress going on in the world. Um, so if you could leave parents with a message about resilience, what would it be?
Yeah, so it would be to always focus on the possibilities on the other side of challenge for
Mhm.
both yourself as a parent as well as for your kids.
Love that. Love that. Um, Kate, thank you for joining me today on Launch. I really appreciate your perspective and your expertise on resilience, especially as it pertains to parents. And your new book, Step Away, The Keys to Resilient Parenting, it'll be linked in the show notes. And I have no doubt that it will become a great resource for many, for many. So,
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. I really have enjoyed this and appreciate it.
no, thank you. Thank you. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights and actionable steps that will help you guide your young adult to launch successfully into adulthood. If you found this topic helpful, feel free to leave a comment and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Leaving a 5-star review helps us reach more parents who are dealing with the same issues. And if there's something you want to ask me, I invite you to join Launch Advice, my weekly publication where I answer one question from parents just like you. It's free advice that will appear in your inbox probably when you need it the most. Just click Launch Advice in the show notes and don't forget to email me your confidential question. And remember, no one ever said parenting is easy, especially when you're raising an adult. Talk to you soon.